Until the year something else came down the chimney. And it wasn't Santa. It started with footsteps on the roof. Slow, heavy, and getting closer to her bedroom. The snow wasn't just falling anymore. It was banging against the windows, a relentless rhythm in the dark, freezing Christmas Eve air. Inside her childhood bedroom, Lena was curled up under a mountain of blankets trying to sleep. She'd told her family she'd be fine spending Christmas alone. She had exams to study for, deadlines to meet, and a to-do list that seemed a mile long. But she hadn't expected the house to feel so big, so quiet, so watched. Suddenly, a loud thump on the roof shook the entire house. The string of fairy lights she'd hung around her window flickered wildly, then went out, plunging her into complete darkness. A shadow moved across the ceiling, a long, distorted shape crawling above her, her breath fogged in the cold air. Outside, the wind howled, but the footsteps on the roof were different. They were slow, deliberate. Each step landed with a heavy, wet crunch, as if whatever was up there knew exactly where she was lying. She squeezed her eyes shut and forced herself to whisper, "It's probably just snow. Probably just snow." But snow didn't walk, and it definitely didn't stop directly above her bed. The sound went silent, dead silent, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Then a new sound began, a soft, dragging noise moving slowly from the peak of the roof toward the chimney. Lena held her breath, her lungs burning. The old house creaked and groaned as if something immense had just settled onto it, and then she heard something she could not explain, a low, trembling grunt coming from inside the chimney downstairs. It sounded like someone squeezing through a space far too tight for their body. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Someone's in the house," she whispered, the words barely audible. But then a voice echoed up from the living room below. A deep, cheerful voice that didn't match the storm, or the silence, or anything remotely human. "Lena, have you been good this year?" She froze completely, every muscle locked in terror. No one had keys, no one was supposed to be coming tonight, and that voice, it sounded like a cracked, broken record of Santa Claus. Trembling, she grabbed her phone and crept to the top of the stairs, its flashlight beam shaking in her hand. A voice in her head screamed at her not to go down, but then the whisper came again, closer this time. "I brought something for you." The fireplace downstairs shook violently. A cloud of ash puffed into the living room, and her Christmas stockings, which she'd hung just hours before, fell from the mantel with a soft thud. Then something dropped inside the chimney. Hard. It was a sickening sound, like a body hitting brick. Lena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. The living room lights, which had been off, flickered a deep pulsing red for a moment. Then everything went black again. Out of the darkness, a long, thin hand slid out from the fireplace opening, edge first. The skin was pale, almost grey, and the nails were long and sharp. It trembled, as if it was freezing cold. Then another hand joined it. With a final, sickening scrape of brick, a tall figure pulled itself out of the chimney. It wore a tattered red coat, caked in soot and old crusted snow. It even had a Santa hat tilted crookedly on its head, but it had no face, just a black, empty void, until two bright, glowing white eyes blinked open inside the darkness. The creature lifted its head slowly, a movement that was both jerky and fluid. It was smiling. She could feel it smiling, even though it had no mouth. Lena tried to scream, but the sound was caught in her throat, a choked gasp. The creature reached into its broken coat and pulled out a long, yellowed piece of paper, a list. It was covered in names, scribbled in dark ink. Some were crossed out with a violent slash, others were smudged as if with tears. And there at the very top, written in clear, neat letters, was her name, Lena Coleman. Alone. Her lungs tightened, and she couldn't breathe. The creature looked at her, tilted its head, and tapped the list with a long, dirty finger, right next to her name. Then it spoke, its voice still carrying that same cheerful, utterly wrong tone. "I visit the homes where no one waits for them, and no one would hear them scream." Lena stumbled backward, her heel catching on the carpet. The creature leaned forward, its faceless head turning side to side as if sniffing the air around her. "Please," she whispered, the word fragile and weak. "Please leave." The creature's glowing eyes widened, a flicker of cruel amusement in their light. "No one leaves. Not tonight." Behind her, the Christmas tree lights suddenly flickered on, but they were no longer warm and yellow. They were a deep, pulsing blood red. The glass ornaments rattled against each other, a discordant chime in the suffocating silence. The tinsel shook. And then Lena saw something move behind the tree. A thin, shadow-like figure with impossibly long arms and crooked legs slowly stepped out from behind the branches. Its glowing white eyes were an exact match for the first creature's. Lena gasped. They came in pairs, a hunter and its shadow. She didn't wait. Lena bolted, turning and running up the stairs. Her footsteps thundered on the old wood, but the creatures moved in absolute silence behind her, like ghosts with weight. The air in the house grew colder with every step she took. Her breath was now a thick cloud of frost in front of her face. She slammed her bedroom door shut and fumbled with the lock, turning it with a loud click. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure they could hear it through the wood. Then, scratch, scratch. A long nail slid slowly across the outside of her door. Another scratch started on the wall to her right, another directly on the ceiling above her. They were circling her room, encircling her, hunting. Her phone, her only light, flickered and died. The battery was gone, drained by the fear or the intense cold. She didn't know. With no other choice, she scrambled under the bed, pulling her knees to her chest and shaking uncontrollably. The house fell completely silent again. For a moment she thought maybe they had gone. Then the floorboards in her room creaked. Slow, heavy steps entered. From her hiding spot she could see the scene upside down. The torn red coat hung off a crooked, towering silhouette. The creature crouched and leaned down. Its glowing eyes scanned the room like a searchlight. Then it turned its head toward the bed, slowly, agonizingly slowly. Its pale hand reached down, fingers extended, and slid under the mattress, searching, feeling, hunting. Lena clamped her hand over her mouth, hot tears streaming silently down her face. The creature's fingers brushed against her hair. It stopped. It seemed to smile again, and that same horrifying, lipless smile. Suddenly, her hand brushed against something on the floor beside her. A photograph. She grabbed it. It showed the house's previous owner, a man who had disappeared without a trace years ago. On the back, in frantic, faded handwriting, were the words, "Do not sleep alone on Christmas Eve. He comes for the lonely." The footsteps shifted. The creature slowly stood up. It knew. It knew she was here. It crouched down again. This time, it didn't search. It reached directly under the bed, straight toward her chest, and whispered, its voice a triumphant, cheerful growl. "I finally found you," Lena screamed as its icy fingers closed around her legs, dragging her out. The shadow creature was there, helping, pulling her toward the hallway. The lights in the house flickered wildly. Green, red, like broken Christmas lights dancing in a nightmare. Her last sight was the fireplace downstairs. It was glowing, waiting. The flames curled upward, as if they were smiling too. The creatures carried her inside, disappearing up the chimney as easily as they had come. Outside, the snow kept falling gently, peacefully, as if nothing had ever happened. And the next morning, Lena's house looked untouched, quiet, still. Just another name on the list, crossed out.